Welcome back to Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. My name's Mark, and yes, this is the Mark Moses Show, weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. And right now here on the Club 52 hotline, Amanda writes for the TC Palm newspapers, and we're here to talk about the Astros and Nationals maybe possibly going to West Palm Beach in the next couple of years. His name is Jon Santucci. John, how you doing today?
Good, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate coming on, and I'm having you on here because you wrote a great article in today's newspaper about how the Washington Nationals and Houston Astros might have made a move now to move down to West Palm Beach. So for our listeners, can you explain to us, what's going on right now?
Yeah, and everything's very preliminary, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's nothing set in place, and I'm sure all those three caveats are great things to your listeners. But the Nationals and the Astros met with the mayor of Palm Beach, the mayor of the Palm Beach County Commissioners Board, as well as the mayor of West Palm Beach earlier this week, and they discussed a couple of the sites. The one that seems to be getting the most traction is a site on 45th Street between Military Trail and Havre Hill. Right now, it appears to be the front runner, and it appears to be because, like I said, there's nothing set in stone. That the Astros and Nationals have not come back yet and said, yes, we like this property, or no, we don't like any of the sites that you guys gave us. So, like I said, it's a very fluid situation, but if there is a front runner, that appears to be it.
John, let me ask you this then. Was West Palm the officials, were they very aggressive? Like, look, we want spring training baseball here in West Palm Beach?
They do. From the people that I've talked to, I've spoken with some of the officials there. They seem to very much want it. The mayor of the Palm Beach County Commissioners Board used the word she's very excited about the possibility of them coming, and specifically coming to this site, 45th Street. So this seems to be something that they want to do. They have the land for it. The city of West Palm Beach owns the property, which is a big hurdle that can be overcome fairly easily. It's not a hurdle, excuse me. It's a big piece of the puzzle that works in the Astros and the Nationals' favor. They want something that is owned by a government, not something that is owned by an individual, where they'd have to get into they could probably get something of a sweetheart deal. And those are my words, by the way.
Okay.
There's a lot of good positives about that location, and West Palm Beach wants to be a part of it. So.
We're here at Jon Santucci, TC Palm newspapers, and the website. It's a great follow on Twitter as well at Jon Santucci, talking about the Nationals and Astros maybe possibly going down to West Palm Beach to do spring training moving forward. And let me just ask you this then. Is this where they want to be tag team champions with the Astros and Nationals? Like, look, it's a 2-for-1 sale wherever we go moving forward?
I don't know that it's that concrete. I think if they go to West Palm Beach, then they would like to go together, and it works out. And remember, it wasn't that long ago that it was the Astros and the Blue Jays, and it seems like the Blue Jays are back to content for at least the next week, staying in Dunedin. But the Astros and the Nationals have some common interests, and the biggest one is they don't like where they're at right now. The Astros are in Kissimmee at Osceola County Stadium, and for the people I've talked to, and I've never been there personally, but I've heard it's one of the worst, if not the worst, spring training stadium in the state of Florida. It's a little bit older. They could renovate. That's something that I know that the county has spoken to the Astros about, but the secondary issue is there's just not a lot of teams in that area, and that's the area's biggest problem. It's not that it's not a nice stadium or that it's not a nice area. Space Coast Stadium, in my opinion, I like it personally. But you're driving, I believe it's a minimum of 52 miles to your closest competition. And that would be, by the way, the Astros. If they move, you're talking about now 70 miles, I believe, is your closest competition. That's every single day for every road game. That's a lot of miles logged. That's a lot of, in their opinion, and I would agree, a lot of time wasted on a bus. So the appealing thing for them is, okay, if we can go to, let's say, if we can get a 2-team partnership with Houston in West Palm Beach, Now you're looking at, well, we won't have to travel probably 9 to 12 times a year because we can just play each other. Then if we want to go play the Cardinals or the Marlins, we can just go down the street 20 minutes. That's not a big deal at all. And, oh, by the way, if we want to go play the Mets, that's 45 minutes away. And now all of a sudden you've got 5 teams within a very short corridor. The flip side of that, this year's a further carry on. That now puts, I believe, this is my opinion, I think that puts the whole area in play for other teams. If you have 5 teams that are that close together, that becomes a destination, that becomes a place that maybe, and these are all what ifs, maybe the Brewers, who I know have been looking around, maybe the Brewers come somewhere in the Palm Beaches or the Treasure Coast. Maybe that opens up something for the Blue Jays, who clearly are looking around. Maybe that opens something up there. And if you add 2 more teams, you got 7 teams within an hour of each other, they'd take that all day long.
Well, is it one of those things maybe you put, and we've talked about this before on the show, the Mets are in Port St. Lucie. Do you put another team there? Is that one of the moves? Or would you put even more teams in West Palm? I mean, what would you do?
Okay, what would I do with public money?
Yeah.
That's a great question. The Mets, I spoke with the owner about 2 months ago. Mr. Wilpon did not want to have a second team in Port St. Lucie, not in Port St. Lucie, but not at Tradition Field.
Yeah.
And again, that could be a fluid situation too. There could be a time in a year where they're like, you know what, it might be good to have a second team here. I don't know. But the people I've talked to, they've said, look, if that's what we needed to do to save baseball, we'd do it. If we don't have to, we'd rather not. And that's understandable. Vieira is tough to sell to a lot of people, and I would even think that right now, this is again my opinion, I don't know that a lot of teams want to be in Vieira because there's not that major access to an airport that's right there. Port St. Lucie kind of gets, in my opinion, grandfathered in because the Mets have been there for so long, but I can see the Palm Beaches, maybe even down to Fort Lauderdale. If there's room somewhere to build, I think that becomes an interesting thing. And let's just take all this, again, this is a lot of what ifs. Let's say the Astros and the Nationals move. The Braves aren't going to stay in Orlando with nobody within an hour and a half. They're not going to do that. So where do the Braves go? Do they possibly come back to West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale area? Because, again, that's where everybody is right now. So this really could have a very positive impact on Southeast Florida if it all goes through. And, again, that's an if, not a win.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I appreciate you bringing that up there at the end. I think it is a win-win for the state of Florida, and especially this eastern part. And isn't that the key here, making sure that these teams don't go to Arizona moving forward? Isn't that the key? Keep these baseball teams in Florida?
It is, and even more so, I think it's just I don't know that it's let's have everybody migrate here. I don't think that's the big picture plan. I think it's, look, you've got teams, especially the Mets, because they're now kind of the oldest team in this area as far as spring training goes. They want to make sure that there's stability. The Mets and the Cardinals, obviously, or the Marlins and the Cardinals obviously want to make sure there's stability because you don't want to keep moving. And so if you keep, quite frankly, the Cardinals happy, I think everybody else is going to stay because the Cardinals are that one Midwest team that you could kind of see, finding Arizona appealing. But if you don't give them reason to leave, you're probably not going to give them reason to look.
I love in your article, this is what I like. You talk about pros and cons about this maybe possible move where the Nationals and Astros go down to West Palm. And I know you said early stages. I appreciate bringing that up. I love in one of them you wrote, minimal community opposition expected. Has that been really a problem with a lot of these teams in some of these communities where they've been opposed to this?
Yeah, remember we thought the Astros and the Blue Jays were, I think if you would ask them, they were about 90% certain they were going to be in Palm Beach Gardens be working on building a stadium right now. They had a deal in place with the county. It seemed to be a lock, and then all of a sudden it was a lot of people in Palm Beach Gardens and those neighboring communities said, we don't want it here. And through such a fit, and it's their area, it's their home, they can feel whatever they want to feel. They threw such a fit and caused such a noise that in January they just dropped it completely. And I've spoken with people from the Astros. They still think that would be a great location, but they know that they probably can't get it done. So the community opposition, I believe, in this turn is an important factor to consider. You don't want to go. You don't want to be kind of caught with egg on your face twice. And all of a sudden, it becomes: is there something wrong with the Astros? Is there something wrong with this? And I don't think there is. I don't think there is at all. But there's always that public perception now, and so I think that they're going to kind of tread lightly here to make sure that they don't find themselves in a similar position.
We're joined here by Jon Santucci, TC Palm Newspapers. And look, switching gears real quick, I know also you guys are starting to rev up here with high school football spring practice, and I know the newspaper is starting to preview that. I mean, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, everything's, you're getting to that end of the year where, softball playoffs start next week, baseball a week from now. Lacrosse is picking up as far as the districts, and Vero Beach seems to be headed towards the, 9,000th consecutive state title. And so we're starting to wrap up, and obviously that you get into May 1st, and that's spring football. And, we threw up a poll on our website, tcpalm.com, just saying, hey, who are the top 11 players in the area that are, going to be seniors, and I think we're over 10,000 votes or something already.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of interest in football. A lot of kids are, we got a lot of talented players in this area. Just, two that come to mind always are Rashay Thomas, the offensive lineman at Vero, and Tyler Horseman, the defensive lineman at Vero /linebacker. So there's a lot of really good college prospects. It's going to be really interesting starting probably about the second week of May when all these colleges start coming through, how they see it and how the recruiting takes off. But there's a lot of interest right now. So I figure we'd pique their interest, whet their beak a little bit for spring football.
That's really good. And real quick, a bonus question. Khalil Mack out of Buffalo, the linebacker, people know of him locally, played at Fort Pierce. How good was he in high school? You got to let us know.
Khalil Mack was really under the radar. It's funny that you asked me that. I actually I just got off the phone recently with the two people that brought him to the University of Buffalo. He was completely under-recruited, and the reason for that is because he got hurt and didn't have 2 years of football under his belt. He was hurt his sophomore year, didn't play his junior year, and so when he gets into spring football his junior year, he doesn't have, at the end of his junior year going into his senior, he has no tape. The coach who was at the time at Liberty and then went to Buffalo and then now back at Liberty, Robert Wimberly, saw him in practice and said, I know his backstory a little bit. I know he's been hurt, so the knee brace doesn't scare me. And the fact that he doesn't have all the 4 years of football, I can understand why he looks so raw. But he one of the quotes he said to me was, he's either going to be a diamond in the rough or he's going to be a piece of coal, and he's tantalizing enough that you kind of want to find out which one it is. I talked to Turner Gill, who was the coach at Buffalo, who brought him in, the former Nebraska quarterback.
Yeah.
He told me that he said you can usually tell with the amount of time that he's been a coach. He said you can tell within 2 to 4 clips of a highlight reel if a kid can play Division I or not. He said he watched his tape a little bit and said this kid could get drafted someday. He went way under the radar his senior year, and now you're looking at a guy who went from, considered a late bloomer to a guy who's probably going to be a top 9 pick in the draft. So.
Oh, yeah. Number 7 of the Buccaneers. I'd have no problem if they took Khalil Mack. They could use the help. Great stuff. Jon Santucci. Give a follow on Twitter. It's a good one. Jon Santucci for the TC Palm Newspapers. Hey, man, I appreciate the insight, and I hope I can get you on again.
No worries. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.